You'd be hard-pressed to find a conservative who has fought harder for cutting spending, cutting taxes, balancing the budget, and saving health and pension benefits than New Jersey Governor Christie. So why on earth is he not on the list of invited speakers at this year's conservative CPAC convention? We're going to debate that proposition next up. But first, check out one of Governor Christie's better moments.
Hey, listen, you know what? You want to yell at me. But don't give her a hard time. We're here talking about the future of the state of California and the future of our country. And you know what? And you know what? And you know what? Let me tell you this. You know what? It's people who raise their voices and yell and scream like you that are dividing this country. We're here to bring this country together, not to divide it.
Welcome back to the Kudlow Report. So it's the conservative snub that's making political waves tonight. The budget and tax cutting and overall fiscal reforming governor of New Jersey, Christie, who's also wildly popular in a blue state, is not being invited to the annual Conservative Political Action Conference. With all due respect to my good friends at CPAC, I think you're making a huge mistake. Joining us now is Steve Lonigan. He's the state director for the New Jersey chapter of Americans for Prosperity. He also ran unsuccessfully against Christie in the 2009 Republican primary. And our distinguished panel is still here: Christie Setzer, Guy Benson, and Wilbur Ross. Okay, Steve, let me go to you because nobody's perfect in life. I get that. Nobody's perfect. But Christie, spending cutter, took on the unions. He wants a 10% tax cut. He capped property taxes. He's for school choice. He's even pro-life on the social issues. How in the world can CPAC people say he's not conservative?
Well, you know, Larry, I think it was the defensive snub because Christie's never gone to CPAC before, ever, and he beat John Corzine without going to CPAC. He's never stepped foot in the door. In fact, when he was in Washington 2 years ago, he didn't bother to stop in at CPAC. He doesn't need CPAC. So I think they had a feling he wasn't coming anyway, and I figured they'd cut him off at the pass.
But you have people saying that he is not conservative enough to speak there. I mean, I'm going to talk about some very interesting reports, some of which I find very disturbing. But basically, don't conservatives and Republicans, don't they need to enlarge and reach out and have a bigger tent? I mean, isn't that the whole issue from the last election? You got to have room for a Christie, for heaven's sake.
And I think Republican conservatives are very hopeful that Christie would emerge as that leader. Unfortunately, you have issues like the great Obama embrace and the fact that his spending is up. And while we haven't had any tax cuts, we haven't had any tax increase. We haven't had any.
But he has
tax
proposed
cuts.
a 10% tax cut. Can't get through the Democratic legislature.
Can't get it through. And the budget that was just introduced today is up $1.1 billion. He's up about $4 billion in spending. So he still has spending increases. So it's an interesting thing because he'll pull New Jersey out of the cap and trade program. He'll veto health care exchanges. But then he turns around and he adopts a Medicaid expansion. He increases spending. So it's sort of like the push me, pull me of the conservative movement. Nobody can figure exactly which way he's going.
Guy Benson, I never blamed him. I mean, it came at a difficult time. But when you had the superstorm Sandy, the Hurricane Sandy, okay, so President Obama's doing his job. He goes to New York. He goes to New Jersey. The governor of New Jersey does his job. He shows up with Obama. I don't see how Christie could have avoided that. He had campaigned very hard for Romney. He had called Obama divisive and demoralizing with some brilliant speeches, and yet people still blame Christie for, I think, essentially doing his job, even though, heaven forbid, he had to appear with Obama.
Maybe you could argue that Christie was overly complimentary and sort of slobbering over the president, but the fact of the matter is Christie's whole brand has been, we need to work together in pragmatic ways and put the people first. And so I think him making a political point and sort of snubbing the president during a major storm where a lot of people were at risk would have been a mistake, A, and B, a total violation of the brand that he's built.
And, I mean, you must be thrilled about this, to see Republicans dumping on a guy like Christie, because Christie's a guy who could win New Jersey. If he ran for president, he could win blue states. We were talking before, Republicans, not since Reagan and Papa Bush have Republicans won, I believe, California and New Jersey. And I think Reagan won New York twice, if I'm not mistaken. Now, it's been so long since they did that. Christie's a guy that could do that.
Absolutely. Look, the issue today isn't whether CPAC was inviting Christie, it's the fact that Christie doesn't need their invite. And it's for a lot of reasons, but the biggest one is he needs to look to 2014 before he looks to 2016. He needs Democrats and independents right now. He definitely doesn't need conservatives.
But he's going to win easy in his re-election. I mean, that's the perceived wisdom. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that, absolutely. You know, look, and I think that in addition to that, when we look forward to 2016, he's got a stronger brand right now than probably any other conservative in his party, save for possibly Marco Rubio. So he really doesn't need them.
So
right
you're
now.
saying that, right, Christie can do more for conservatives than CPAC could do for Christie. Wilbur Ross, you know him. What do you think of him?
Well, as you know, I was part of the group that tried to get him to run for president last time. So, and I was disappointed when he didn't. But I do feel he went a little too far with the president. To be thankful, to be polite is one thing. I think he embraced him a little more than he needed to. But I don't think that's a fatal sin. I don't think there's anybody who criticized him who never made a mistake in public.
All right.
Larry, could I point out, you know, CPAC didn't invite Chris Christie, who did not raise taxes as governor. They are inviting Bob McDonnell, who's just passed the largest tax increase in Virginia history.
Which is very controversial.
And a cap and also a Medicaid expansion. Yet Bob McDonnell's speaking, so there seems to be an identity crisis at CPAC.
I mean, I don't think this Medicaid, no, that's a good point. I don't think this Medicaid thing should be used as a litmus test. I mean, that's a state-by-state decision. Look, although I made a list. You've got Sandoval, these are Republicans, Sandoval of Nevada, Martinez of New Mexico, Kasich of Ohio. He was on here. We talked about this. Rick Snyder of Michigan.
Rick Scott.
Rick Snyder of Michigan. Rick Scott of Florida also endorsed. And Jan Brewer, who was a Tea Party person. Scott was a Tea Party person. They're taking Medicaid money. I mean, this really shouldn't be, to me, a conservative
But what do they have in common, Larry? They have in common that a lot of them are running for re-election in 2014. So at that point, they realize that the Tea Party brand is down. They're pragmatists at the end of the day.
But what if their hospitals? What if their hospitals need the money? I mean, it's just a lot of these guys are rejecting the exchanges, the Obamacare exchanges, but they're dipping into the Medicaid program.
Let me first say that the Wisconsin governor, Scott Walker, who's up for re-election next year, he's also taking a look at these Medicaid dollars and saying no thanks, and he's actually doing it in a very smart way. I think Chris Christie made a mistake. I'm disappointed in the Medicaid decision.
Because he did oppose
He called it extortion, and now he's volunteering for the extortion.
Why do you think he's doing this?
Because I think he's in an election year. I think he feels like he's in the process of reforming Medicaid in the state, and that's where he can win conservatives over. I'm a fan of his. I think this is a mistake, but the point that you made, Larry, is so important here. And I love CPAC. I'm looking forward to going again. But if you have a Republican with the party's brand in the toilet right now, with a 74% approval rating in a blue state, including 80% of Indies and 93% of Republicans. I mean, you can't throw that guy out in the cold.
All right, and I want to make another point, which is disturbing. Now, these are just reports. I cannot confirm this, but reports are saying that the real reason Christie wasn't invited to CPAC is the National Rifle Association, the NRA. Now, Christie is for gun control. I don't know all the specifics. He has said we should have a conversation. Now, David Keene is the president of the NRA. He used to be, for many years, the head of CPAC. Apparently, Keene told CPAC, do not invite Christie because he's running against our crusade for no gun control. I don't want to get into the issue of gun control. I may not agree with Christie, okay? I don't think the weapons should be taken away. But I'm just saying, have a conversation. Don't block it out. This is what Republicans have been famous for, insulating, pushing people away instead of having a conversation.
And the problem we have, Larry, is that all these people falling for Medicaid just demonstrates that the conservative movement can't message this.
But what about the NRA? What about the rifle issue, the NRA?
Well, in New Jersey, it's a huge issue.
Do they have a right just to kick him out of the... One guy said today, and again, I can't confirm this, just reports, that Chris Christie has a very limited future in the Republican Party. This is all over the gun control issue. Do you think that's right?
I think there's other issues, too, besides that. And I think outside of New Jersey, he used to be much more popular than he was inside New Jersey. Now it's the other way around. Now he's more popular inside New Jersey than he is outside the state.
What do you think about that? Have you heard the same rumors that it was the NRA that's kept him out of this CPAC?
There are rumors all over the place about all sorts of snubs and people not invited to CPAC. And I think it's just, look, there are so many problems right now in this country. The debt is $16 trillion. We have a president who's totally unserious about cutting spending. We are headed towards financial oblivion. And the last thing that conservatives
And you got a guy, Christie, who took the unions head on and basically won. And he's, by the way, for school choice, he took them on spending, he took them on taxes, he took them on pensions, he took them on health care, all of which was going bankrupt in New Jersey. This is the kind of tough, uncompromising guy the GOP needs.
There have been no changes to the union contracts in New Jersey at all. There has been no changes to union contracts.
He has changed the co-pays, I beg your pardon. I interviewed him.
It's minuscule, Larry. It's nothing. It's
he also
pennies.
changed the state. He also changed the state property tax. He put caps on them.
Yeah, 2% cap in state spending just went up 3% on the state level.
Well,
so now central government's getting bigger and local government's getting squeezed, and that's not a conservative model.
Well,
and that's a big problem for our state.
He may run on that.
He may run on being a big government central planner who wants more big government spending.
You really believe Christie is a big government?
Yes. The state spending has increased $4 billion since he's been governor, and state debt has gone through the roof.
Do you see Christie is bigger than ever before? Guy, Wilbur Ross, I'll give you the last one.
I really do not. Honestly.
All you need to do is look at the budget and look at the departments. Government in New Jersey is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and he's squeezing local governments to death. And any mayor in the state will tell you that.
You think that's right? Do you see Christie as a big government Republican?
I don't.
Medicaid expansion guy.
You'd like that, actually, if he was a big government. He's using your model.
Look, I love all of this. I think that every time the Republican Party has a purity test where even somebody like Chris Christie fails, it's good for my side.
I don't know. I think the GOP needs Christie. That's all I'll say. Steve Lonegan.
Also, remember, even Paul Ryan's budgets didn't cut spending. They just slowed the rate of increase. So if you want to call Christie a big government spender, how about Paul Ryan?
Okay.
All right.
No argument with me.
All right. We will have to see. To be continued. Steve Lonegan, thanks very much. Now.